Hello, my fellow sovereigns, and welcome back to another episode of the Crown Yourself podcast. As always, just shower yourself in a hot dose of gratitude for choosing content that uplifts and champions and sometimes challenges belief systems, because you know that it's through the challenges of those belief systems that we grow. And I'm very excited to bring on a guest today that she is a successful multiple six-figure earner. She has multiple children, and she also has a diagnosis of ADHD. And I've seen commonly this self-labeling or self-diagnosis or receiving diagnosis of being ADHD or neurodiverse. And many people on the interwebs using that as an excuse not to go for their dreams. And what Natalie Wallace does is she is a testimony to prove that even if you are neurodiverse, it doesn't mean that you can't achieve your dreams. It just means that you may achieve them differently than anybody else, which is awesome, because then you get to pave a new way for how other people who actually have ADHD and who are neurodiverse can also do it. Because maybe for those people who see examples of success in neurotypical ways, they perceive that it can't be done. But by you choosing to use what you have been given and how you have been created as your asset, that is how you will inspire others in your unique way, in a way that someone who's neurotypical may not be able to inspire them. So I hope that this episode gives you some tools, some strategies, some lessons, and most importantly, some perspective shifts and some beliefs that no matter what diagnosis you have ever been labeled with, that you still can go forth, can conquer, and can be that warrior for possibility, and still can claim your power over your life and create some really, really epic results. So with that, I give you Natalie Wallace, the ADHD coach. Hello, and welcome back to The Princess and the Bee. I am so excited to be here with Natalie Wallace. How are you, gorgeous queen?
Hi, I am awesome. I'm doing great. So glad to be here.
So I want to kick it off because I think that what you have been able to build through your network marketing business, which is a business, like as we said in our pre-chat, has had more failures than successes. And looking at that, you've been able to successfully not only grow a network marketing business, but then support others to do that as well. What is your secret? What's the secret sauce?
Oh man, I think it's a combination of things. I think it really is who you are aligned with, who you attach yourself to, the mentorship that is, and the leadership that is being provided to you. If you get into a network marketing business with an amateur, it's going to be an amateur business. You want to align yourself with somebody that's had fruit on the tree, so to speak, success in all areas of life. I think as it goes with mentorship in general, if somebody is mentoring you, every aspect of their life, if they don't have success in all the areas that I want success in my life, then they're not the right mentor for me. A lot of people say like, oh, my boss is my mentor. And I'm like, what's his marriage like? Because I want a successful marriage. And if his marriage is not great, I don't want that person to be my mentor. Because even though they're not mentoring me in marriage, like everything that they do affects every other part of their life. So it's the same with the network marketing business. You need to align yourself with somebody that has the values that are similar to you, that can actually coach you in a successful way. Now, that's not to say that, there's going to be a lot of people who are just starting and really excited. And maybe you've been approached by your friends or family who are like, I just started this thing. And maybe they are connected to somebody who has success. So you need to get to know that person. Not saying that, because your friend is brand new in it, and they don't know anything, you shouldn't necessarily talk to them about it. But I think it's that. I think it's habits. A lot of times people's habits do not match up with their work ethic and what they're willing to do. I think a lot of people treat network marketing like it's a hobby. So it will pay you as a hobby. If you treat it like it's a career, it's going to pay you as a career. And that's really what my husband and I have been able to do. That's how we've been able to leverage it, is we've taken it very seriously. We've gotten aligned with incredible mentorship and leadership, the best probably in the entire industry. And we got our habits, our work ethic and our habits matched up with that. So it's probably that. I guess it's not really a secret. It's the action.
Yeah, it's 100% the action, and I think there is a concept though that's perpetuated. So I mean, we say habits, and what are some of the habits that you've seen
Mhm.
that are a detriment to people being successful in networking, in network marketing, or in business in general?
Great question. Distractions. I mean, we always say if you can take a little bit of your spare unproductive time, and right away, so many people are like, I don't have any unproductive time. I'm like, yeah, okay. I have 3 kids and like 3 businesses. I have unproductive time. You definitely have unproductive time where you're scrolling on social media, and social media can absolutely be an asset to your businesses no matter what you're doing. But if you're using it in a way to like look up funny TikTok videos where husband and wives are pranking each other, like funny, yes, definitely a time and a place. But if you get sucked down that rabbit hole and all of a sudden you're like, I've just lost 1 hour of my life. Like, where did that go? How many times has that happened? Where, I think there's certain things that people tend to dull themselves: TV, food, drinking, uh, any sort of entertainment addiction, that they're dulling themselves from the rest of their life for whatever reason. They're not really feeling something. That those are distractions, and they're distracting you from what's in front of you. And I think that those are bad habits. It's like it's a compound effect, like Darren Hardy writes about in The Compound Effect.
Great
Like
book.
such a good book. When I was nursing, I would have a little snack by my bed, right? And I would wake up in the middle of the night and be like, I was like so hungry all the time. And then I stopped nursing, and for like months and months after, I still had snacks at my bedside and would eat in the middle of the night. It was just like a habit that I had instilled. And then I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get rid of the last, like why there were 10 pounds. And I was like, well, this habit added up and it compounded into an extra 10 pounds. Okay. Now, if I had replaced that with, let me do a quick tapping or a quick meditation or something in that place, that would be a habit that would compound into a successful result versus a negative result. So I think your habits are either keeping you successful or driving you towards failure. And it just depends on what those habits are.
Completely agree. Now, if the habit is the habit of getting distracted for
Mm,
like, because I know you work a lot with people who have ADHD,
yes.
and that's like prime time distraction time.
Oh, yes.
How do you navigate that? How do you play into that as a strength?
Play into
ADHD.
ADHD. Oh, ADHD is 100% a superpower because of, and I say our because I have ADHD. I've had it my entire life. So I've run the gamut of being a child, a teenager, an adult, medicated, unmedicated, no blissful ignorance and trauma. Like I've navigated ADHD throughout all of these different phases of my life, and it has presented itself differently in every single phase. So I've had to put systems into place in my life to help me navigate my way out of that. And so for people who have ADHD, or I think people in general who tend to get distracted, because I think everybody thinks they have ADHD, but they don't. There are people who are actually diagnosed with it. it is very easy for us to get distracted. So for some people, putting a timer on your phone or having, your timer come up, and maybe not just a timer or an alarm, but one that attaches a note that says something like, is this worth it? Like, is this time spent worth it? Timers for me work brilliantly. If I don't have timers, like, I'm going to literally miss every meeting. It's just something that I've learned about myself. Some people, like, maybe even the noise is going to be too much for them. Like, they can't even have like an extra noise. So I think trying to work with somebody, whether it's a therapist, a coach, somebody to figure out what is going to be, because inattentive and attentive in combo, ADHD, they're all going to have sort of different ways to pull themselves out of a distractive episode. I don't even know if I just made that term up, a distractive episode. But to pull themselves out of that habit, and it's very easy to do. It's trying to figure out, maybe allowing yourself to have that. If there's something that you really like to look at funny videos on TikTok, it brings you joy, it actually relieves some stress for you to laugh. Great. Set a timer for 15 minutes of that, and you have to be done with it at that point. You do have self-control. You do. And I think it's retraining your brain and your mindset to let yourself believe that. I think it's hard for some people to believe that. And that, that goes even deeper, and that goes into maybe therapy, but like, training your brain and training your self-talk to believe that you can pull out of those things.
I completely agree. And being able to see that you do have control and not use your diagnosis as an excuse to not actually get things done. There's a big difference between having a diagnosis and then using that diagnosis as an excuse.
Mhm.
And I think something that with habit formation and habit creation, what are some of the most successful habits that you've had aside from setting a timer that have really worked for you for being able to navigate through distractions?
Um, my husband and I are so organized with our schedule. We share a calendar because we share businesses together and 3 children. So we have to really get just hyper organized with everything. Before something gets put into my calendar, a lot of thought goes behind that. Like, what's in front of it, what's behind it, what's around it, who's got the kids, who has the car, is there time to get to and from the thing that we are putting this in our calendar for? Now that things are opening up, that's a whole new thing too. You got to add in the travel time for it. So I think what my husband and I do at the end of every night is we kind of like get together, like, what worked today, what didn't work today. Here's why, without judgment. And we put things, I think, just getting hyper organized, which is not necessarily a skill set that I found myself being like being easy for me to do, I guess, in the beginning. But if I didn't, everything else was falling apart. So, I will say to him, like, hey, I'm going to do a podcast interview from this time to this time. So that means like we just communicate. Over communication is what works for me. And I think that is kind of what pulls us out of I mean, to be honest, like, if somebody were like, tell me what your daily life is like, I could be like, but, like, without even thinking, like, I could tell you to the hour everything that we're doing almost every single day. Like, this is where this time is, this is where this time is, this is where the pickup is. So for me, I will say that's what works. Hyper organization, over communication, alarms, and the habits of eating nourishing foods and drinking water. A lot of times when I'm like, I'm like feeling really low. If I drink, right, I'm like, no. That thing is
Needed a sip.
um, if I go and I drink a big glass of water, I take a breath and I'm like, okay, all right, my brain fog is a little bit gone. Eating nourishing foods, drinking water, and actual sunshine. Not just the vitamin D supplement, but like actually getting outside and taking a couple of breaths. If that's all I have time for, that's fine. But I like use it as I used it as an analogy to my daughter. I was like, we have to get outside. She's like, why? Ugh, I just want to stay inside and play on my little tablet. And I was like, sunshine for humans is like chargers for tablets. I was like, literally, I go out there and I'm like, I'm probably like super embarrassing to her because I'm like, literally hit every part of my body and charge me back up again. And she's like, oh, like she totally gets that analogy, right? You got to speak to the kids in their language. But it's true. Like that movement, sunshine, food, and water, that's going to help kind of get you back, circle you back.
Just the basics. And I mean, I look back on my habits from, I would say about 15, 20 years ago when I was like super scattered, drinking things like Diet Coke that I haven't touched in 10 years, drinking things like eating the amount of sugar that I ate. And now my diet is so clean. It's like 80% vegetables, 20% organic meats, predominantly all organic, no soda. It's coffee, tea, water, um, occasionally wine, but not right now because I'm doing the 75-day hard challenge. And but that process of just getting those very basics is so essential to the performance and the everyday performance. Like I tell my husband, I don't eat for like I'm not a foodie. He's the foodie, but I am like I eat for function. So I'm like, will this fuel me or
Mm,
will this deplete me? And the sugar and those sort of things may fuel you for a little bit, but overall in the long term those have a detrimental effect. And since for me, how I've had to shift my mindset from that immediate gratification, or that immediate win of like, if I just eat this thing that has more sugar in it so that I can power through that time when my body's really telling me I could just do a meditation or take a nap or walk outside, if I just do the other thing instead, well, that will have the longer term effect. That's shifting the mindset into the vision rather than getting those short term wins, which eventually lead to crashing and burning out.
I love that. And it's so very, very true that short-term gratification versus what's your long-term vision?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a huge
Totally
piece.
worth it. Yeah.
And the basics of just getting back to those basics of getting that vitamin D. I learned something really interesting on the podcast recently with a guest who is a functional medicine doctor. She said vitamin D is not actually a vitamin, it's a hormone. That's why we need it.
Oh,
And I was like, mind blown. Like,
yeah.
mind
I'm like
blown.
writing that down.
So that's partly why we need it so badly, just like everything is based on our hormones. So looking at being able to calibrate the body, fuel our body properly, drink our water, eat clean foods, get that sunshine, and then looking at those basic habits of eliminating the distractions, setting the timer. How do you combat? Because I know you and I are both mothers. You have more kids than I do. Just by one. I might rank it up a
It is
notch to
still a
three.
lot.
We may see. But the experience of that balance and that dance between, because I don't personally believe in work-life balance. I know you don't either. And what is that dance that you do throughout your day to navigate both being a business owner and a mother?
Yeah, great question. So I really believe that you can't strive for perfection. You have to throw that out the door. You just have to strive for grace. Like the more grace you can give yourself, the happier you and your entire household are going to be. It's, my husband and I had to like pack schedule. It was like we knew the kids would be the two oldest were going to be at school. And so we had this time and we know when the baby's nap is. So we're like, we pack our schedule. But then the baby got sick. It didn't want a nap. So it was like, okay, you have to be really good at improv. You have to be really good at bending. You can't be like, I mean, I don't want to say you can't be that type A personality, super pragmatic. You absolutely can, but you got to give yourself a whole hell of a lot more grace than somebody like maybe my personality that's just like, oh, let's just go with the flow, whatever happens is great. You have to realize that there's only so much, you cannot control everything, especially when you're a parent. Like anything is going to happen. One snotty nose, one high fever, and your whole week is shot. Or what, they fall down and hurt themselves. Hopefully not that bad, but you know what, it can change the trajectory of your day, of your week, of your month. And you just have to kind of let go, and know that at some point you will ramp up the other side of it. And so I feel really blessed that, you know, the team we have behind us, my husband and myself, is just like, we have grace with each other. Our communication is really great. We know when one goes down, the other has to step up. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, because I feel like I kind of went off.
You
Yeah.
totally answered it,
Okay.
because, and this is something that I want to point out to the audience, because it, for so many people, and this, I get this question so often from clients when they're like, I don't want to plan, or like, you know, you can't be too rigid with your plan. So on the one hand, you have a very
Right.
structured schedule, and on the other hand, you have flow and grace and being present in the moment.
Yeah.
And I think so often we think that those are two separate things, but they're not. They work together in unison,
Absolutely.
because yes, sometimes you can try to stick to the plan, but it's far better to have a plan than to constantly, because if you don't have that plan, what I've seen is that you're constantly then in reactive mode to whatever is that next thing that comes up. And
Mm,
then it constantly keeps you in reaction mode to the kids, to the business, to the whatever it is that you know, because something is falling apart at some point. Someone's falling down somewhere.
somebody.
And so being able to have the plan and have the grace, so you have both to be able to do that dance. How did you get to the point where you were able to do both? Because I think so many people think that it's an either or situation, and I completely disagree with that.
I think I was one of those people for the longest time. I was like, well, you either have to be type A or you have to be like loosey goosey. Like, it's like you can't schedule in fun time. You can't schedule in alone time with your husband. Like, you can't I'm not saying that we do that, but we definitely have the times that we know we're going to be by ourselves and have time to just be together and connect however we decide we want to. Um, so uh, I think everything had to crash and burn, quite honestly, for us to be like, this isn't working. What we're doing is not working, which was, at first it was his way, scheduled, and then we tried it my way, which was like, let's just do whatever. And it would get to like 5 o'clock at night, and he'd be like, what's for dinner? Every single night, like, hey, what are we eating for dinner? Because we want to eat by 5:30. And I found myself getting like pissed. Like, if you ask me what's for dinner for one more time, I'm gonna go crazy. And then he's like, we don't have a plan. And I was like, aha. So if I make a meal plan, like, here's what we're eating for dinner every night, I put it on the fridge. He knows what's for dinner. He's not going to ask me what's for dinner. I'm not going to get mad about it. I know what's for dinner, so I can kind of at least pull out, if I have to pull out some frozen meat, or if I have to get something prepped, I can do it in my downtime while I'm making lunches or whatever it is. Like, oh, that takes stress off of me, which makes me all around a better person and mother and wife and human, to have a little bit of a plan. So we started that way, meal prepping, just kind of. And by meal prepping, I don't mean like, I'm not the person that's going to prep all of my lunches on a Sunday. I can't do that. More power to the people that can. I cannot. But if I know what's coming up for dinner, I can make sure I'm not wasting money at the grocery store. I can make sure that we are getting the things that we need and everybody's happy and that it's done. So I'm like, okay, a little bit of prepping equals a lot less stress for me. Cool. Then we were like, we found out that we were scheduling meetings whenever other people could have meetings with us. So we're like, well, that's not really honoring our schedule and our time. And I said, what's the most important time of the day for our family? And he's like, oh, hands down, 5 to 7:30 p.m. every single night. As any parent knows, that is like the dinner, bed, bath, whole routine.
Bed, bath,
So
books, and
yes,
like, my goodness, my son loves to have conversations at like 7:30.
of
And
course they know how to do it.
anytime throughout the day, I try to have a conversation with him. He's 4. Like, it ain't happening. But at 7:30, he suddenly like blossoms and opens up and like wants to have like an intimate chat of like the day and reflection. And I'm like, this needs to be like
You're
planned
like, listen, kid,
beyond, yeah, to
we have a
know
time
that
for
there's
this
going to
in
be
the
like a half
schedule.
hour of talking, which I love and I want, but it
Right.
ain't happening at 9 a.m. in the morning.
Right. So it's like you have to. So we were like blocked out on our schedule. You will never be able to make an appointment with us from 5 until 8, pretty much every single night. That time is sacred. And you have to honor that family time. It's not going to be like a relaxing time by any means, but it's going to be the time that your kids know that they have your full attention. Our phones are down, our computers are off. This is their time for all of us to connect and come together as a family. We like to eat dinner as a family. That is our thing. It might not work out for everybody that way, but that's our thing. We all come together for dinner, and clean up and routine, and they all know what it is, and everybody feels really good about it. We also make sure that they each get their time. That's kind of baked into our schedule a little bit with like the pickups and the drop-offs, and they have 2 separate pickups and drop-offs, so they each get some one-on-one time with either one of us, that's also special and sacred. And that's when those deep conversations happen. I'm not taking a phone call during that time. I think you have to realize, like, they are our why. They are our legacy. They are our reason for that we do everything that we do. So you can't forget that in the pursuit of your vision. You can't let go of, you can't ignore your why in the pursuit of what you're doing. So honoring that, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, such a huge piece. And so once you started scheduling, so I love the fact that you first scheduled family time and like what was the most important for the family, for you personally, and then shifted into scheduling times for conversations. And then what was next in that planning phase so that now that you have the schedule but that you're flexible?
So we do like individual power hours, my husband and I. So at first we did 2 hour, we each got 2 hours, and it was like one of those, like, don't open the door unless somebody is bleeding. Like, don't come in here. Like, if there's a bone showing, then you can come in. Like, it was like that. And then we were like, 2 hours was too much because it was taking away from some of our building our business. So then we moved it to 1 hour, and then we moved it to, let's look at our schedule each Sunday, and we look at our next week, and we're like, okay, Remy's block goes in from 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Natalie's block goes from 11:30 to 12:30. And then we allow ourselves, like, we don't ask each other, what did you do during that time? That is our power hour to do whatever it is that empowers us, and we need to be empowered by that day. For me, if it's like, I gotta take just like a 15-minute nap, or I need to do a meditation, I want to read in quiet and peace and quiet, like, I want to take a shower. I mean, it's not really the time to have our basic needs met. Those should be met outside of all the other times, right? Our power hour is for us to do whatever we need to do to be in our power. Um, that's a game changer, total game changer for us, to have that complete alone time. We are never alone. If we allow it, we will never be alone. So if you have listeners out there who are maybe single parents, or don't feel like that they can figure out childcare, or don't have the help, you got to find a way to make that happen, whether it's having a neighbor kid be a mommy's helper and come and play with your kid in one room and keep them distracted while you're in the other doing the thing that you got to do. You have to have that time to recharge, and do whatever it is you need to do, or else our businesses would be stagnant. They wouldn't be moving and growing the way that they are, if because we could fill our time, house housework, getting stuff done, being in the garden. I could be in the garden for 4 straight hours, probably because I'm hyper focusing out there, and it feels really good to be out there. But like, I I don't want to just fill my time. I want my time to be productive, but I also want to allow myself that time to have joy in everything that I'm doing. And I'm not going to get that if I'm burnt out. Like you said, it doesn't matter how fast you get there if you're burnt out when you get there. Like, what's the point if you're burnt out?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the next thing that we scheduled in were those individual power hours. And we always make sure that we kind of come together, like to be like, hey, that didn't really, like, that time was not good for me, or I feel resentful because my time seems to always fall around when the baby's taking a nap. And like, but you're also getting that time. So you really have 2 hours. Wait a minute. So, like or working out, like the power hour is not for working out. Working out should be a part of our daily habits as well. So let's put that into the schedule. If it's something you want done, put it in your schedule. Make it a priority, like it is a business meeting. Because if you're not a whole person and you are not functioning, and I know as a coach, you feel this way, like you can't coach somebody that's not whole. So you got to get yourself together, man. Pull it together in any way that you can. So we schedule all the things that are important to us so that they happen.
I completely agree. Like I scheduling and delegating and being able to craft that time. So my husband and I, we recently, when we moved back to Los Angeles, I said, I need a gym to leave, because even though I have a Pilates studio in my home, I still need a gym and some cardio, and I am nursing an injury, and I was like, I need a gym to like go someplace. And I made sure that I wanted to find a gym that also had childcare so that we take the whole family. That's our family gym time. And we go at the time that's prime for my husband to work out. And we go, and my son now is like, we're going to the gym today. And I'm like, yeah. So we're already instilling that habit in our children of working out is important and treating our bodies like a priority. And we're doing it as a family but it's scheduled. It is like 5 o'clock, 5:15 every single day, right after our son's practices of the different sports and activities that he's in, so that we have that like prime time slot to be able to support us, so that we both get the exercise that we want to have, and our family, and we delegate it to just paying an extra $50 a month for a gym membership for childcare, which is a huge win that our kids both love, and that we're able to have that time to just focus and get the workout on.
Ugh, yes.
Yeah.
I think that's when because before having kids, I was like, why do they have like a nursery here? Like, I don't know. It's like I couldn't be bothered to understand it. And then when I was like, wait a minute, when I had our first child, I was like, there's childcare at the gym and it's included in my membership. Like it was like, I was like, I'm just gonna drop her off and sit like in the locker room. I might not even work out. I'm just gonna sit
I'll
down.
just go sit in the sauna.
Right. I'm just gonna and it is absolutely mind blowing. And you can find some gyms where you're like, I'm gonna sit at the little juice stand that they have, or our YMCA has this awesome, like almost like meeting room where you just see people doing work, and I'm like, it's brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
take advantage of those. There's places like you said, like taking advantage of that, and you're instilling those good habits. So great.
Yeah, and especially if you're a single mom or single dad, and you need that alone time,
Yeah.
there are solutions if you just choose to be creative enough to find it. Like you said, hiring that, neighbor down the street, or like what we would do when we were back in Australia. While I'm not all for babysitting with the iPad, our son was very good within that first morning hour, me being able to go to the gym, and he would just wake up, and my husband sleeps a little later, and he would just wake up and he would spend the first hour learning on his iPad, playing, and he knew what games to play, and he knew that I would know what games he wasn't playing if it wasn't a learning game, because I wanted it to be something that was enhancing his mind. But it was very focused, that was like his hour to be alone, to have his alone time, so that I could have my alone time at the gym, and so that my husband could have his alone time sleeping. And he would have the door, like, be able to hear him just in case he needed anything. But we made it so that he could have those independent rituals of, like, he could get his own like little breakfast snack, and get a banana, and get a little setup going, so that he could just sit and have that quiet time to then like warm up to the day. But
I think that's like you're teaching him regulation, responsibility. Like that stuff's so important. Like I don't understand the whole judgment around tablets and screen time. I'm like, whenever somebody that is older than I like has a comment to say about like, well, we didn't have that. I'm like, and if you did, you would have used it too. Like it even like you wouldn't be like, oh, so I can have 5 minutes to pee by myself. No, thank you. That's gonna hurt their brains. Like, please, lady. Like you would have been all about those apps as well. And I think it's like it's important to realize like it's okay. Take the judgment away from the tablets. When we're traveling, we're like, I'm not even timing it. You just
Yeah,
go wild.
just go. Yeah.
Watch Umi Zoomy for 5 hours, knock yourself out. Like,
Yep.
it's obviously I don't put my kid on tablets for 5 hours, but
on a plane, like when we flew
yes.
to Australia, my 4-year-old still talks about, he's like, we woke up really early so I could sit and watch movies all day. And
Yes, honey.
and
Yes,
I said, yes. And you were on a 16-hour plane flight, and I was very happy to let you watch 16 hours of movies.
you are just surviving at that point.
Yep.
Like you're gonna do whatever you have to. I think it's a self-care I don't say women's parents' rights issue. To be totally honest, I feel very strongly about it. Like, do not talk to me about what is right or wrong. There are screens everywhere. My 1-year-old has had exposure to screens since he was a newborn. There's nothing I could do about it. Anywhere I took him, there were screens as a newborn. Like, there's screens everywhere. So at least we can control the input.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good parenting move, to be honest with you.
And I think it also comes down to teaching that self-regulation piece.
Yes.
Of you have an hour of letting them, pre-warning them of like, this is not going to be today's a special day, we're traveling, so you get 5 hours on your iPad, or today it's an hour, or today it's going to be 2 hours, and then or it's an hour playing some logical game, and then you can play some other
Silly
piece or thing
thing.
that's a fun little like nothing video game. But being like this is technology that's going to be a part of their lives forever and then some. Like what's coming down the pipeline as far as tech and virtual reality and augmented reality for what our kids are going to be experiencing, like an iPad ain't going to be nothing compared to what they're going to have exposure to.
Oh, completely. And hey, your kid might grow up to be a coder because that's what they learned how to do, and they're going to have opportunities, boundless opportunities. So yeah, it's so true that self-regulation is like, there's so many lessons to be learned with that it's like, don't release it and let go.
So I think another piece that I wanted to touch on, especially when it comes to the network marketing piece, is there is a common concept in a lot of network marketing circles that's just this like hustle culture, hustle harder, work harder, and there is no balance. It's like, oh, just work until your eyes bleed. And then I don't ascribe to that, but I want to know about your exposure to that sort of culture in network marketing, and how, if you have been exposed to that, how do you combat it? How did you balance it? Who did you choose to mentor you to who didn't ascribe to that sort of mentality?
Oh man, I mean, you can't scroll through social media without seeing the like hustle till you die, sleep when you're dead, mom boss, hustling, I'm always making money, go, 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 go mentality. And it is such a dangerous concept to perpetuate, especially like with young women, quite honestly. Like to just ignore all the things that are happening to you in your mind, in your body, everything, and just keep going, because the most important thing is this thing you are doing. Not who you are being. Like, who are you happy with who you are being when you're like that? Because I wasn't. I was like, I felt like my marriage was suffering. I felt like my friendships were suffering. My friends didn't even hear from me. I was like, I gotta go, 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 go. I gotta do this thing. I gotta talk to these people. I gotta whatever. And there were even people who were successful in my industry speaking from stage about how, you just go as hard as you can, eliminate all the joy basically in your life, all the things that you find, like they would see joy as distraction, which I think there needs to be a reframe with that.
I completely
Like,
agree.
right? Like, no, take Netflix, take social media, take all the things away. Don't have a TV in your house. Don't go on dates. Don't spend money. Some of these things in moderation. Yes, I completely agree. You shouldn't be replacing, like time that you could maybe read a little bit of a book with, I'm just going to binge on, I don't know. I was going to say Yes to the Dress. Nobody watches that anymore. I don't know why I thought of that. It was so weird.
Is that even like, I haven't had cable in years, so I'm like, oh, I remember that show.
I know. I was like, that was when I got married over 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
that I was really into that. But or like whatever is popular on Netflix right now. Like, let me just binge this thing that is garbage for my mind, that is not actually forwarding my life in any way. Because I love it. Okay. Listen, I still love some of those silly like reality shows, and I think that they're hilarious. And fun to watch. But like, did I get my stuff done? Did I work really hard that day? Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna treat myself to an episode of this. Listen, I can't stay up past 10:30 at night anyway, as it is. So like if I'm gonna watch an episode, it's a shock if I get through a whole episode anyway. But I think eliminating all of the things that bring you joy in your life to get this thing that you're not even sure is gonna work out for you is going to cause you to crash and burn. And maybe that person did it that way, but we don't know. Maybe, you don't really know what's in somebody's head. And I think, or really what's happening behind closed doors. So the hustle till you die thing, I'd rather it take a longer time for me to get to that point than like miss my kids' soccer games or miss going to a family wedding because I had to go to a business conference instead. Because if I didn't, my upline was going to think, whatever, or I'm going to go, I have to make this meeting, but I actually like, it's either a doctor appointment or a meeting. You know what? I'll be fine. I got to go to the meeting. That's the most important thing. The one track mind. We don't have one track minds. We're humans. We have like 50 track minds. We have like all of the highways going and all speeds at all times. So we need to make sure that we are still doing the things in our life that bring us joy. But yes, having the habits in place, like it is very easy, especially for people who have ADHD when they're building a business, like a network marketing business, to be like, man, I had 2 meetings today. This is so great. You know what? I'm going to take tomorrow off and I am just going to treat myself. I'm going to go and get a pedicure, a manicure, a facial, and they don't have the money for it. Right.
Yep.
When we're coaching people with their finances, especially the way that I teach somebody to build a network marketing business is I'm like, let's look at your finances first. Show me what your budget looks like first. Show me where you're spending your money. Everybody has leaks. Let's figure out where the leaks are. Let's plug them and let's start telling your money where to go. Because more than likely, you got leaks in Amazon. You got leaks in entertainment. You got leaks in eating out. You got leaks in maybe you're buying groceries and not eating everything because you're not planning out what you're eating. So you're throwing away that green leaf lettuce all the time, right? So let's figure out where your money is going. Let's plug the leaks that aren't necessary. We had somebody on our team who was spending over $500 a month on eating out. Single person. It was a single person spending $500 a month eating out. I was like, oh, it sounds so nice. But I was like,
that's so luxurious. Yeah.
But they were like, but I can't afford to invest in tools to build my business. Okay. If we took that from $500 a month to $250 a month eating out, for a single person eating out $250 a month, you're still doing pretty well, my friend. Now take 150 of those dollars and put it towards groceries and prepping your own food and making some healthy food at home. Okay, so now you have $100 left over to invest in some books, in some audios, in some apps that can help forge your mindset. Can you do that? And they're like, yeah, I can do that. That's not that hard to take it down by half. Okay, great. Let's do that for 3 months and let's see how it goes. Then we revisit it. They're like, I think I can do more. Okay, great. I don't want you to take, or somebody who likes to play video games. That's their stress reliever. They spend we have somebody on our team that was spending 5 hours a day playing video games. We all agreed, not super beneficial. Can you take it down a little bit? I don't want you to stop doing what you love doing, but can you replace some of that time or some of that money with something else that's going to help you? If so, let's try it and see what happens. It's all you can, it's always a choice. But I think, as far as like building a network marketing business successfully, you have to ask yourself, what do I want? When do I want it by? And what am I willing to give up to get it? Because no matter what you do, whether it's a brick and mortar, whether it's a online based business, whether it's, whatever, opening your own practice of some kind, you have to figure out what those things are. But for some reason, when it comes to network marketing, people have a resistance because I think it's a low entry point to start. And because, the way certain people are leveraging it, majority of people leverage it online, is really salesy and inauthentic and not really trying to add value, trying to sell something to people, which doesn't feel good. So, yeah, I think, again, did I answer your question?
You absolutely did. And I think the other piece is that I've seen so many similarities between the approaches because coaching is another industry that also has a low entry point. You don't need a degree. You don't even really need a certification. You can just prove that you have a skill set to help people. And if you have a process, and this is what I help many of my clients form, is like an actual process to be able to serve. Otherwise, you're just kind of like winging it, which you can charge for, but I wouldn't say that that's high ticket. And so
get an interesting sect of people that way.
Yeah, you'll attract some interesting customers that way who just want like accountability, and you can get a low dollar buy-in for that one, but high ticket coaching really requires you to have a process, which I assume also network marketing in some ways you have some sort of process to follow in building relationships, not necessarily this like, let me just DM everyone in my Instagram followership of just like, I have something to sell you and let me just sell something to you that makes, that's painful. It's painful to see that. But that experience of that low entry point of looking at those habits and starting with money. I love that you start with money, because money, just like the body, just like calories that you take in, it gives you an awareness of data versus like, I feel like I'm doing so much in my business, because people can feel like they're doing so much, like you said, when they're doing like, I did 2 meetings today, or I had 2 consult calls today, and versus, like, how much did that really propel? Like, was that a meeting that actually grew, or was that a meeting that just kind of fell flat? Like, and being able to look at the data, and money is such a powerful data sheet to be able to guide your decisions from, just like you did with seeing that snack that nighttime snack. Once when I was finished being pregnant, had the baby, like I always I don't always track my food, but I was like, let's just take an accounting of the data of how much I'm consuming. And I realized I was still consuming the amount of calories that I was when I was pregnant. And I was like, oh, no wonder that extra 10 pounds is struggling to fall off, because I had clear, concise data that said, hey, you're doing this, you're not exercising as much, and this is what the data is. And that's the same as money and looking at your time. So being able to track those pieces to give yourself some non-judgmental awareness. And again, like you said, not taking away from the things that bring you joy, but being able to use that as a data to say, let's maybe shave off a bit here and shave off some here, and look at where we can spend that time or money in a different area that can actually propel you forward.
100%. And I truly believe this because over the past 7 years, it has proven itself to me that my actions now show up 90 days later. So if I have 2 meetings today and 2 meetings tomorrow, and then I stop for a week, 90 days later, maybe those 4 meetings turned into something, maybe, but then I stop for a week. So all of a sudden I have a low. And then when people have a low, they get frustrated and then they stop. So consistency is really also super important in network marketing. And it doesn't have to be like insane hardcore consistency where you're burning yourself out, where you're boss babe, hustle till you die, blah, 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 whatever. Like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. But if you wake up and make an intention to do something small for your business that day, whether it's have a authentically real, because I guess authentic really just means real. It doesn't mean good or bad. It's just authentic means you're real. So have an authentically kind, genuine conversation with somebody. That is for your business because it's helping you learn how to have real conversations, not I want to sell you something. Or it's reading a book, or it's just those small consistent actions will always show up. But if you stop, so does your business.
And I love the fact that you pointed out conversations. And I think this is a huge question that I get from a lot of newbie business owners is like the need to sell and make money and provide for yourself and having conversations. It seems like there's such a long gap. So how do you navigate that conversation to then lead to a sale? How do you like to do it?
I could literally talk about conversations for 4 hours. I love it because when somebody first, partners up with me in business, a lot of times I'll hear, oh my God, I want to talk. I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous to talk to this person. And I'm like, did you talk to people before you got into this business? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, what's changed? And they're like, well, I don't know how to talk to them about the business. I'm like, did I say I wanted you to talk to them about the business? What I want you to do is I want you to get really good at just having conversations with people you don't know. And I signify a conversation is you learning something about somebody that you didn't know previously or by looking at them. You can't be like, oh, I learned that person had a kid. Oh, really? Because they were nursing a baby. So of course they had a child. Like what is the name of their child? How old is their baby? Whatever it is. I want you to get really good at just being curious about people. Within the span of that conversation, you're going to find out if they're actually looking, if they have a need for something, if they have a need to do something different with their lives and maybe build a business, they want their own thing. If they need a product that you have, you will find that out, but you're not going to be able to find that out unless you have a conversation, unless you initiate a conversation and learn how to deepen and connect that conversation. If you can't do that, you're not going to be successful in a network marketing business.
Or really any business.
In any business.
I've had 3 businesses, a brick and mortar Pilates studio, e-commerce company, and my coaching business. And all 3 I have seen require conversations. That's the common denominator across all businesses, across all industries, consistently.
If you can be an excellent networker, you will be successful in every single aspect of your life. And a networker, it doesn't mean selling a product. If you are getting nervous about talking to somebody, just simply having a conversation, here's why. You're making it about yourself because you've made it about yourself and your feelings. And that's not what it's about. It's about the other person. If you can stay curious about somebody else and wanting to just be curious about people, you will be successful. And the people that need what you have will come to the surface. You don't have to go out hunting. Oh, no, please stop doing that, people. Please stop sending me messages that, you make $10,000 a month selling lipsticks. Like, please stop telling me these things, because I also have researched and learned about the network marketing industry for a very long time. I grew up in it, actually. So I know a lot about it. And so when people come to me with these false statements because they were told by an amateur to say these things, you're not being true to yourself. And that's why you haven't been successful, is because you haven't been true to yourself and you haven't found the right person to coach you in it. I just think that you know, adding value, if you can go out and look to add value to somebody that knew that day, man, you've done your job. I don't
Yep.
care if you talk to them about the business or about what product that you have. You got a little bit better because you learned how to add value genuinely to somebody. There was an older man walking across the street, and this guy was like, I mean, decked out. He had like a purple velvet like suit on and a fedora, and he was in Target. I was driving into the Target parking lot. He was walking in, and I rolled down my window and I said, "Sir, are you going somewhere today besides Target?" And he said, "No, ma'am." And I said, "Well, you look absolutely fantastic." And he was like, that is what that guy wanted. He wanted to tell him how good he looked. And he felt so good about himself. He had a huge smile on his face. I had a huge smile on my face. It was like, that's all. That's all you need to do, is go to add value to somebody's life. Be a good friend. That's it. And if people need or want what you got, then you can figure out how to talk to them about it. And your coach, whoever's coaching you in it, will be able to help guide you in how to effectively talk about it in a way that's not going to be weird. Stop being weird, network marketers.
Stop being weird.
So
I think that's such a key point, and it's one of my mentors says, "You want to be a billionaire," and he is. Help a billion people. Like, help 2 people become billionaires themselves. Help 2 people become millionaires, and you will become a millionaire yourself.
Yeah.
Like, if a billion seems too far out of reach, take it down a few million. But allow yourself to look at that adding value as such a piece, and it's such a key piece of like, how can I continuously add value to someone else and be of service rather than being selfish and focused on yourself? Because all the fears of rejection and like abandonment, they're all because the spotlight's on us rather than on other people. When you shift the spotlight to being on somebody else, it changes the game for the conversation, and you'll be able to feel, at least I have been able to feel through having conversation, when someone is like, I could really use your services, or I could, like, what do you do? And when they ask, that's your invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you can just, I mean, it's so just what you said, being of service. Like when I met my husband, he was like the dude that would take anybody. When we lived in LA, he would take anybody to the airport, which I was like, you are crazy.
That's a gift, especially in LA. Like, you're lucky if you can even like date somebody who's like, you live in the Valley and they live in Venice Beach.
Right.
You get it.
Lucky if an Uber driver will take you there, man. Like, it's no joke. But he was the guy that would help anybody move or take anybody to the airport. And I remember one time, like, just being like, there's no time, we have plans. And he's like, Natalie, like, I'm gonna be a good friend, and they need help right now. And I'm like, wow. I learned so much from that, because yeah, it might be a minor inconvenience, but it helps somebody. And who knows how that what that ripple effect can do. So if you can just be of service to other people, you'll always be successful. And in network marketing specifically, like, stop trying to hawk me your services or get me to answer a question on social media with an emoji. Like, we know what you're doing when you're like, what's the craziest thing you've ever eaten? Answer below. And then all of a sudden you answer, and then you get a direct message about a product. Like, don't do that anymore. Stop.
No, I don't want to know how many balloons it takes to fly to Mars and have you comment and guess. Like,
Right?
No.
Like, I'm just being silly, but now I can't because so like authenticity is everything. Even
Yeah.
if like if you're a jerk, I'd rather you be an authentic jerk. If you're awesome, be authentically awesome. You don't have to um if you feel good doing all of those things, then great. It'll show. But a lot of you, I can tell you don't. I can tell you're just reading a script. I can tell you're just writing a script. It's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that scripted approach, like you can always that I think of it like art. Like sales conversations are and any sort of conversation, it's like an art. And in art, the greatest artists are the ones who have the original art. They're not copying. They may have borrowed a technique or a tool. Like you'll see with a lot of impressionists, like some of them have that strong outline, or like I love Vincent van Gogh, and he was inspired by the Japanese um outline and caricature drawing. So he added that too, but it was a piece that he added to his style, not like I'm going to trace and copy this, paint and sip wine painting.
Which
Like,
I love, by the way.
which I love. Those are fun. Those are super, super fun.
Right, but
But
I'm not
from
selling my art.
like, you're not selling, yeah, I'm not selling my Van Goghs because it's a copycat.
Yeah.
And versus truly being that full, authentic, express version of you, and really owning that. And I think that you just are such a testament to that, and you bring your full authenticity, your full fire, all red hair and all to it. And I know that's what's made you extraordinarily successful in your businesses.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate
So I would love to get to a little rapid fire. Are you ready?
it. Okay.
Who is your favorite female character in a book or a movie, and why?
My favorite, this is like really, oh my gosh, my favorite character in a book or a movie. I'm gonna say Princess Leia, because she holds it down among a world of people who are nothing like her.
Number one book recommendation for any entrepreneur.
The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy.
Mm, awesome. And I haven't read that one. So like I love Darren Hardy.
Yeah, I love him. I think I love that book. I got through it super fast and I was like, yes, I read it probably once a year.
And I do have to say, Natalie gave me one of the best tips for reading a book. And I think it was your father who gave you
Yeah.
that tip. Can you share it real quick? Because it was so powerful for helping me remember, retain, implement the books because I'm an avid reader. So can you share that tip? Because it's really served me.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. So my dad told me this, and it has just been a game changer for how I read books. It's like basically by the end of the book, I've read the book like 15 times. So you read the first chapter, and as you're reading the first chapter, you highlight all the things that are like pop out at you, all the things that like mean something to you. So I'll highlight all the important stuff. And then before I read the second chapter, I reread my highlights of the first chapter. And then I read the second chapter and do the same thing with highlighting. Then before I read the third chapter, I read my highlights from the first chapter and the second chapter, and then I read and highlight the third chapter, and so on. So by the end, you've read the first chapter 15 times. And the whole book just really, it's a great way to cement it into your brain for sure.
Ah, so powerful. What woman would you want to trade places with, dead or alive, but back when they were alive, not like actually in their corpse, just for a day?
Michelle Obama.
She is like polling as the sure, it's between her and Oprah. It is a toss up.
Really?
Yep. Those are the top two. What is it about Michelle Obama that you'd want to learn from a day in her life?
Oh man. Her mindset, because she's doing it all but while being right. She's like the president's wife. She was the president's wife, but she stood out. It was like she was just as much of a figure, an important figure as her husband. And I would love to hear like her mindset and how she was able to like step back when she needed to and move forward when she needed to. And yeah, I think she's amazing.
Awesome. What is your number one habit for success?
Reading. Yeah. I was gonna say sleeping, and I'm like,
With 3 kids?
I was gonna say that, and then I'm like, yeah, my kid sleeps in my room almost every night. She comes in my room, but so that's not true. So, but yeah, I would say reading.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What is your morning routine?
It is completely dictated by my children, but we wake up around 5:45, 6 a.m. I take my son downstairs, get him a bottle, get him breakfast. Then my other 2 come down, get them breakfast. And then my husband kind of tags out. I run upstairs, get all myself changed and ready to go. I think it's super important to like get dressed as fast as you can. The reason I don't the first thing in the morning right now is because if I don't get my son when he wakes up, he will wake everyone up else in the house. So I want to make sure I just get him downstairs and get him situated. But I come up, I get dressed, I put on clothes so that I am like ready to go no matter what happens during the day.
And what is your evening routine to set you up for success in the morning?
My husband and I go through what worked and what didn't work. We go through what's happening the next day, and I set my alarms for all of my next day appointments, meetings, reminders, all of that.
If you were to have your success twice as fast, what would you do differently?
I would have started reading more and listening to positive audios and podcasts more. Just, I would have like stopped resisting that.
Mm.
The way that I did. I was like, I just want to read Twilight, Hunger Games, and 50 Shades of Grey. Like, I don't want to read these books that are challenging me. Like, I just want to have fun. Like, I was such an instant gratification gal. And I wish that I had sunk into the mentorship and sunk into the habits that I was being taught faster. Because it would have accelerated everything.
Yeah. What do you define to be your kingdom or queendom?
My family. I think I very much see like I kind of I set the temperature for my household. I set how everything goes. So like as long as I'm feeling good, I find everybody else is feeling good. So I have to figure out what it is for me that day that helps me feel good and makes me feel powerful, because I want my girls to have that as well. I'm showing them how to be queens. So I want to make sure that I live in that example.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, can you hear my baby from downstairs?
So funny.
I was like, oh, someone hit his head.
I probably don't hear it because it's almost like a sound
It's
machine.
like, it's just that white noise. How do you crown yourself?
I would say like, how do I crown myself? I think like, I know that question's up for my interpretation. So
Always. Yeah.
I think like getting my nails done is like a thing that makes me feel really good about myself. And that is like one of those like, yeah, girl, like I went and I got it. I took that time out. It was outside of my hour, outside of my basic needs. It was like one of those where I was like, I'm going to do this for me. And I feel really like, I feel like it changes my whole vibe when my nails are done.
I agree. Like it's just you gesture like it's
yes. And I'm always like
there's pointing and things that must be done with these talons of power.
Yes.
So Natalie, where can we find you? How can we work with you? If we're in network marketing, or if any of our audience is in network marketing, how can we get the mentorship from you and support?
So if you can reach out to us on wallacenetworkcoaching.com, you can kind of, talk with me there. You can reach out to me and send me a little message or fill out our survey to figure out what your needs are. Also, you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Wallace Network Coaching. Find all of my funny family posts and content and all of that there. I kind of mix it all up. It's all one and the same. And you can message me there. I'm more than happy to chat with anybody and answer any questions.
Awesome, Natalie. This has been so valuable, and I love your perspective. I love your red hair. I love how bold and authentic you are and unapologetic about how you do business and how you do family and how you do both very, very well and are able to, manage co-founding your children as well.
It's not always perfect and it can be messy most of the time, but I'm in it,
Yeah. In it to win it, and the authenticity, it reigns true. So connect with Natalie if you are in network marketing or if you're looking for some support with how to balance your habits with ADHD. She is extraordinary. As always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now.